All right. Welcome to this special interview, Mom and Pop Video Shop. We are talking to the one, the only, the homemade. I said home. I need a how I enunciate my words here. Homemade game guru himself. Lou is here. Now, Lou, you have been on Retro Movie Geek several times, and this is your first, I think, actual appearance on Mom and Pop Video Shop. I am honored to have you here. You are a YouTuber in your own right. I'm sure we'll talk about your YouTube channel, but I wanted to have you here because one of the things that Tyson and I have talked about doing as we do this channel is spotlighting independent artists, whether they be filmmakers, writers, musicians, artists like yourself who do cool, eccentric types art. It doesn't matter. Anybody that's doing something outside of the sort of more mainstream corporatized structures, I'm 100% for supporting. So obviously we're a movie type channel, so we focus primarily on filmmakers, but you are a guy who I know has a deep love of movies, of retro stuff, of 80s cartoons and all that kind of thing. So I definitely always love when you're working on something, and I'm happy to champion it from the hilltop. So Lou, welcome to Mom and Pop Video Shop.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. I love everything that you do. When you've had me on the Retro Movie Geek podcast and, talking with all the guys there with Daryl and the rest. And, we, as Gen Xers, we just had that love of the classics. Doesn't matter if it's brilliant or cheesy. It doesn't matter. It's just something that helped make us who we are today. And, we really appreciate what we went through and what we had. So, it's always a pleasure. And, I'm loving what you're doing with the new YouTube channel and seeing the interviews you guys have been getting and just talking about, horror movies that normally would be swept under the rug or completely forgotten about.
Yeah.
But you guys bring it to the mainstream, and that's great.
Well, I appreciate that. And as I said, it is an honor to have you here. Tyson would normally be here with us, but he's apparently he has like responsibilities or I don't know, whatever. Excuses.
Family always gets in the way.
Yeah. I love how by the way, I just did a thing where I had a guy come into the shop to share some collectible stuff, and Tyson couldn't be here for that because I'm sure most people know by now, Tyson lives like an hour plus from me, and we have to like coordinate when he comes into the shop. And I feel like I keep throwing him under the bus. I need to stop doing that every time he's not on something. But anyway, he gets it. He has a good sense of humor. So, Lou, we are here today to talk about specifically, you have a new Kickstarter that kicked off recently, and I, not to blow smoke up my own butt, but I am a supporter of it as well. And as I told you, I love Lou's work, but I also love Lou, so that's why I'm happy to support anything he does. But that being the case, I want you to tell the folks what it is. I actually, if you want to, while you're talking about it, I will add to the stage the Kickstarter itself. And so just kind of walk us through this newest invention of yours.
Okay, so it's called Card Games and Comic Books. I've been publishing my own independent comic books for quite some time now. For the broad range from Pedlian, The Adventures of the Pedlian for young kids. My most famous book, Paper, Rock, Scissors and Stuff Wars, which is the classic hand game, rock, paper, scissors, everyone on Earth knows, brought to life as a planetary war between empires. My horror title, Enter the World of Mephistopheles, and my newest concept, which is the concept that gave birth to this idea, which is Beer Miss Brew, which is a beer-powered lumberjack superhero from Nova Scotia, Canada. And leading back to Beer Miss Brew, it was last year where I was watching one of the classic episodes of The Simpsons where they explained Duffman's character, and I realized that there isn't really any beer-based superheroes, even though beer is I believe, the third most popular beverage behind water and tea, and in the world. Yeah. And so beer, Duffman is not actually a superhero in The Simpsons. He's just a corporate mascot. So I thought, you know what? Being a Canadian, and we're also famous for our love of beer and making beer, let me make my own beer-based superhero, and he had to be a lumberjack. And I put him from Nova Scotia because even though I live beside Toronto, which is our main city, the biggest city in Canada, I didn't want to have what I call New York syndrome, where, in superhero comic books, everything is in New York.
Of course.
Aliens never land in St. Louis or Nebraska, right? So everything. So it's the same for Toronto. So I was like, no, let's do a superhero somewhere else and give some love to another part of the country. And when I created that character, I also made a drinking card game. Now, I'm inching near 50, so my days of drinking competitions have died down. But I thought, for the younger generation, let's make a fun trivia card game to get your drink on.
Mm-hmm.
And once I designed those two, I was like, you know what? Why don't I make card games for all my other comic books and sell them together as one product? And I looked it up, and no one else does this. Not the big companies, no one else. And I found a company in Missouri that makes clamshell blister packs, because I'm all about made in North America, North American quality, made in America, made in Canada. So I could proudly say that those products you're seeing on the screen there, they're all made by me, and all the components are made in North America.
Nice. Very cool.
I got the clamshells from the US, the printer that I have here in my home city, Mississauga. And I designed all the games. And one thing you, Joel, don't know about me is I used to design card games like 20 years ago.
Oh,
cool. I was actually part of the Canadian Toy Association. I used to go to toy fairs. But back when I was in my 20s, I wanted to be rich. I had 15 independent toy stores. And now, as in someone in my 40s, I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. But back then, I was like, no, I want Walmart. Mm-hmm. I want Target. I want the biggest retailers. So, I easily got frustrated, and eventually it all fell apart when a company called Zellers, which went out of business, actually got bought out by Target, and then Target left Canada. But they screwed me over royally, but that's a whole other story. But then, I got into comic books, which has always been my true love anyways, when I started meeting artists and working together to collaborate. Mm-hmm. But that's my long-winded story that led to this. So I'm trying to, do this Kickstarter to introduce people to the concept. So that's me at different Comic-Cons. That's actually a Michigan Comic-Con where people have been buying up my comic books.
Cool. And, zoom in a little bit here.
Yeah, so all those great people, they were at Great Lakes. I believe it's Great Lakes or Grand Rapids. Grand Rapids Comic-Con.
Got it.
And it was a great experience, and
very cool.
People really like the books, and so that's a breakdown of what it looks like and what you get. So you get an ashcan comic book, 8 pages, limited to 100 copies. That it pretty much explains the whole story.
And I would like to say real quick, and literally, I know I'd have to move the whole camera setup, which I'm not going to do, but right next to me on my spinning magazine rack, I have all 4 issues of Paper, Rock, Scissors, and Stuff Wars sitting there. I'm proud to say. So they're great. I mean, here's the thing. And obviously you're my friend. So I'm, I get it. There's a bias built into this. So whatever. But that, if I truly thought you didn't do stuff that at the very least I could appreciate, and I'm not a comic book guy, but I've always, I know that Peter and Daryl love to make fun of me for this. I've always pointed out, while they were obsessed with superhero comics, I was like Mad Magazine and Cracked. That was my particular drug of choice back in my my youth. But I could appreciate great art, and I could appreciate great craftsmanship, and that is what I could see in the work that you do. Whether you're doing 3D cardboard arts and people hang on their walls, which by the way also have all 3 of the ones you gave me hanging up. Again, I wish I could take the camera and do a pan, but all 3 of the ones you sent me hanging up. But whether it's that, or whether it's something like this, or whether it's your comic books, the level of craftsmanship, and to me, it's cool because obviously, I don't know what the process is that goes into making something like this. When I say mass produced, obviously you're not making tens of thousands of copies, and that's the point. But you're making more than 3, right? You're making more than just that couple. But there's still, and I mean this in the best possible way, a handmade quality to everything you do. There's a care, there's a heart, there's a love that comes through in the work, and that on a personal level, it's easy to get something that's mass produced. I feel go buy anything, right? And I've got stuff obviously that was made that way, but when you get things that are made by actual artists and local artisans and things like that, it just has a level of specialness. And plus, it's not there's a gajillion of these things that are everywhere, right? It's it's something special and unique to both the artist and to you, because, and you meaning the purchaser, the customer, because you you made that conscious choice to say, hey, I'm going to support this person, but also I'm at this cool thing in my collection that people are going to see. And if they're into similar things, they might be like, oh, cool, man. Like, what is that? And it can start up a conversation. So my point is, I think that anybody that is into comic books, supporting local artists, indie artists, any of that stuff, and certainly any kind of card game stuff would greatly benefit by checking this out.
Well, when it comes, one thing I love about the whole community, it doesn't matter if it's, making independent movies, making independent comic books, making crafts, whatever it is. Even though they're different genres, we still have the same passion.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I was watching that Netflix series on when they explained the history of movies, and they were showing how Halloween was made.
Yes. Yeah.
And pretty much they were trying something brand new that never really existed in the horror genre before.
Yep.
They were pretty much, Halloween set the benchmark of what horror would become. And they were just a bunch of passionate dudes and women who just came together.
Yeah.
And was throwing pretty much mud at a board and trying to figure out, okay, how do we make this thing happen?
And they could have, here's the key, and this is the key to me, and this is why I love like what you do. That attitude is what we need more. Like everybody, and I'm one of them, who's gripes about like, oh, we never get anything new and everything's a sequel or a remake or a reboot and a reimagining and a blah, blah. And that's true because no one has the balls to take risks anymore. Like it feels that way. Now, there are independent artists, I think, that do. And every once in a while, we get something out of Hollywood, which is, if we're really being honest, has always been the case. Hollywood has always been risk averse. They typically, it's usually the independents that create something, Halloween being a great example of this, that then studios glom onto because like, oh, there's a proven market for that. And I get it from a business perspective why they do that. But that being said, like what you're doing, it's like there's no guarantees, and truly great art and people that want to break new ground and people that want to be original and create things, you've got to take some risks, and it's not going to be for everybody, but it's that being willing to throw mud at a board and realize at the end of the day, sometimes the mud will slide off and reveal something awesome. And then sometimes it'll slide off and reveal more mud and it won't work. But you have to be okay with that.
Yeah. This journey, when you're an entrepreneur and an artist, it's one of the hardest journeys to have because you really have to be passionate in what you're doing and realize the truth that, especially when you're trying to introduce something new to people.
Yes.
Like I don't sell, I'll have news about a distributor soon, but when you go to Comic-Cons, you're there to sell and convince complete strangers why your stuff is worth their time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very introverted. I'm actually a very quiet person, but I had to learn very quickly in the Comic-Con game that you got to get out of that shell and talk. Because if you don't talk, you don't make anything. You don't make anything. There's no food on the table, and your wife is there with a rolling pin. Like, yo, what are you doing? Why are you wasting the time? But yeah, it is very difficult because we've had this conversation where right now you have a Hollywood machine, and Hollywood has a lot to do with a lot of this. Comic books, doesn't matter what it is. It's all tied back to Hollywood. And yes, we're in this media space now where everything is just regurgitated. It's either a prequel, sequel, or remake. I actually did a post on Instagram about the fact that this movie year, 2024, is most of the stuff coming out now falls into one of those three. Very few new ideas. And I actually spoke, this was a couple years ago after the pandemic, when I was trying to get my comic books into certain stores. And one person actually brought up a point. So this is someone who's in the industry established, and he goes, it's just easier to sell something that's been remade. People will complain about it, but those same people will still buy it.
Yes.
And complain about it.
And there's hate watching too, right? Let's be honest. There's some people that just want to watch something to gripe about it, and I get it.
Everyone, She-Hulk and Velma.
Are that's basically what,
They were hate watched into such popularity that Velma, and I'm one of them because I'm a huge Scooby-Doo fan. My wife and I hated Velma. We watched the whole bloody thing, and guess what? They're getting a season 2.
Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, and I've told my kids this because, like, especially one of them is a massive Star Wars fan, and he's just sort of over like Disney Star Wars. He's a George Lucas Star Wars fan hugely, and he started off as a Disney Star Wars fan, but like gradually when a teenager can observe the quality of the writing, that I'm not saying that there aren't kids that can't figure it out, but you know what I mean. Like as a kid, I wasn't that Like if it entertained me, I didn't care. But if a 15-year-old's coming to you going, the writing, Dad, is so rough. And it's like, I've told him the problem is that if you even to hate watch something, if you watch it, you're giving them eyeballs, which gives them the impression that people want this for good. They don't care whether it's good or bad. They don't care whether it's ruining a brand. They don't care about that. They just care they got eyeballs on that and somebody's subscribing to their streaming service.
Yeah, and this is what makes it the true challenge for independence, where you are against the wall. And you like I've had the honor of talking to the Kevin Eastman, the co-creator of the Turtles, quite a few times. James O'Barr, many people who got into the game with a new concept. Now, the 80s was a completely different time, and one of the reasons why I love the 80s, not just because of the awesome childhood we had, but 80s was about experimentation. 80s was, to me, the most original decade for movies, period. They tried all types of madness in the 80s, and a lot of 80s movies set the benchmark for movies now, and we're seeing the regurgitation of many of those concepts today.
And even when something was a reboot or actually back then it wouldn't even call it a reboot, a remake. So the one that always people love to pull out is John Carpenter's The Thing. Well, that was a remake. Oh, number one, it was based on a short story, both. And I personally feel differently when something's got an original source material like a play or a book that's from a totally different medium. I don't look at those as remakes as much because it's just to me it's different. You can pull different things from that source material to make it something unique, and that's what Carpenter did. And it wasn't, he made it like obviously one of the things that can make a lot of people cringe now is when the phrase, we made this thing, we remade this thing for a quote unquote modern audience, which personally I don't think exists. I think it's BS. It's a marketing term. But the difference is in 1982, you could argue that's what he did, but he didn't do it for a quote unquote modern audience. What he did was he took the modern techniques, the modern ideas of where special effects were, and then he took a story, quite frankly, that was probably much more adherent to that original source material, and he made something that feels new and fresh. Like I don't know if you ever watched Bates Motel, but it's a great one I love to bring up because it is a direct, reboot of it was based on a book, obviously, but that movie was the bigger influence. But the way they did it was so interesting and unique and different. Fine. Like Shakespeare. Most of Shakespeare's stuff was totally ripped off. I'm using quote fingers in case you can't see me. And it was totally, a rip off because back in that era, it wasn't looked at that way, right? You took what other artists had done, you built upon it. You didn't have this attitude of like copyright and control. They had a totally different mindset about that, of how an artist could contribute their own thoughts and ideas and build upon something that came before. That I have no problem with. What I have a problem with is the crass sort of commercialization of like, we're just going to take a brand because we view every title that had any success in the past as a brand, and we're going to, kind of crap something out that isn't very good, and the writing will be subpar. Because let's be honest, you would hear virtually no bitching at all, none. From yes, there'll always be a small faction, but for the most part, from true fans of this stuff, if we were getting quality stuff, there's just no way. Because when we got quality stuff, we loved it, which is why it became successful.
Well, this is what it's now, just as you said, you hit the nail on the head. It's just about commoditizing and pumping it out.
Yes.
The fan base, the people who love this stuff, and I am one of them, and we're forgotten. Because, as I said, they want a modern audience is also a way of them trying to quaff or shape the younger audience.
Yeah.
But I think the mistake they're making, and this is what many of us independents see, is that they're trying to force this new audience to like something instead of just making something and letting that audience like it on their own.
Yeah. Yes. So, and that was you're 100% right. 100%.
Yeah. So what, we try to do is do things organically and figure out a way. So when I get with, we were showing on the screen, rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah.
So I just came out with this crazy idea, bringing, paper, rock, scissors to life as a war and, writing it my way and, using the great art of Hugh Rookwood and just putting it out there.
Yep.
And let you guys decide, the audience, if you like this or not.
Yeah.
And building upon it from there. The Turtles went the same way.
Yes.
It wasn't forced onto you. They just put it out there.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens.
Yes.
But of course, that's the harder way to do things, but it's the most organic. And like when going back to what I'm trying to make is, I know I'm not going to have a Kickstarter campaign that's going to make me $20,000, $100,000. I'm not going into that. My goal is $1,500. My goal is to hit $1,500 so I can afford to make the first print run of 100 copies.
Mm-hmm.
And then, give it to those who supported it and signed everything. Make sure it's something special for them, because that means something to me, that this is something that's special to you.
Yeah.
And then after that, I change the cover and then go take it to the next level with distributors and retailers. But your original copies are still the first things that matter, because those are the ones that were made by me by hand.
Yeah. And I think that this ties into it as well. Whether it's true or not, I personally think it is, but whether it is or not, there is a sense, and it wouldn't be shocking to find this out, that the vast majority of corporations, at the end of the day, it's all about money. And there's a definite feeling like they don't respect, let alone like, a lot of their customers. So it comes through in the attitude about a lot of the ways. But now, if that's not intentional, if it's accidental, that's how it comes across, that's on you for garbage marketing and PR. So whatever. But what you do is a great example of what I'm talking about, where there's a love of not just the work you're doing. You're not like trying to pander to a specific audience about anything. But what you do is you create the work you feel drawn to, no pun intended, and you then though have this love and respect that comes through in your approach to your customers. Like there's a legit gratitude you seem to have in your heart for the people that support you, that buy your stuff, that support your stuff, and it comes through in the way you show up in the world. And that's why people feel drawn to you. You know what I mean? I think that honest to God is a big piece of this, that if you add the attitude towards other human beings, like, hey, I appreciate you, man. And I really love that you support my work and blah, blah, blah. Like if you have that attitude, who is it like drawn to that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, when you go to Comic-Cons, like I've met so many different creators. I'm talking about these are the big guys, from McFarlane to Mike Grell to like Neil Adams, rest his soul. And it's interesting, the ones you meet who, even though they've achieved all this success, they take the time with every single fan they talk to.
Yep.
You're not just some fanboy or fangirl and okay, sign next, sign. And there are those who have that attitude. Don't get me wrong, I'm not going to name names. There are those, but it's a beautiful thing where you see those who truly appreciate those who got them to where they are. And when I go to shows, every single person who stops by my table, and you're trying to make money. Money is at the root of all of this. But when you're at a show, you have people who want to talk your ear off.
Yep.
And it's a customer. You bought my books. Hey, let's have a conversation. I've actually learned how to multitask conversations now. I can have multiple conversations with different people.
Yeah.
But it's that camaraderie. You want to be able to, you appreciate that people are taking their time and their hard-earned money to say, you know what, I've never seen this before, but I like how you're talking to me. And one of the greatest compliments I get, especially when I go to shows, is that you do your sales pitch, and our community, I love it when seeing my brothers and sisters in the community making their money. You didn't buy my book, you bought theirs, great. So you'll have people who say, you know what, okay, I got your sales speech, I'll come back around. 90% of people who say that, they're never going to come back around. It's just a nice rejection. However, it is always refreshing when they do. You have people who actually do come back and they're like, dude, that enter the world of Mephistopheles, a world where the devil gets to play with people and randomly choose people. You got me on that one. I want to try it. Or rock, paper, scissors. I know this game. I've played this game since I was a kid. And now you have a plastic empire. You have floating anvil gods. I got to read this. And you appreciate it. And you sign it. You want me to personalize it for you, whatever. And I said that's what is the joy in all this.
Well, it's also understanding. And I think when you're closer to it, like basically like people like us, like if you're again, I know I keep going with the corporate example, but when you're at that certain level and you're just this massive corporation, I think there's a definite bubble and detachment. When you are somebody who is interacting with people more directly, what you begin first off, you also realize that person that said, hey, I'm gonna because and I know I do this, right? I'll go to a con, I have like in my head a budget. Okay, I'm not spending more than X. I come by and I didn't know your booth was there. I've never met you. I didn't know your booth was there. I see your booth. I'm like, oh, this is cool, but I just got to the con. I don't want to just start shelling out money, right? I want to see what else is there. I'm like, but this is cool. I gotta remember, and I've done that. I've done the whole like, oh man, I'm gonna come back by. Now I 95% of the time try to follow through on that, because I feel like a jerk. Even if I just go back and buy like a little something, because I realize that person's there, they're trying to make a living. But it's on the flip side, from the vendor's perspective, every person that gives you $1, that is $1 that, unless they happen to be some trust fund baby, they have earned, they have worked hard for, and they don't have to spend with you. And and for some people, it's the difference between, like literal survival, like being able to like pay for their basics, but they really wanted to go to this con and get something, and you never know what that person's going through and what their story is. And I kind of feel like that's why you treat everybody with that same level of respect, because you don't know where everybody's coming from. And as long as they're respectful to you, which I would imagine the vast majority of people would be, that I think that there's just something that comes through in the attitude. Like even doing these videos on YouTube, it's like every little time, that goes by and we get like a subscriber here, because we're obviously a tiny channel. We're just starting out, but every subscriber I get, I legitimately notice, and I'm like, that's cool. And when somebody unsubscribes, you're like, oh crap, I hope, but then I also realize you can't go through life going like, oh no, what did I do wrong? I'm not doing that. I'm not changing anything. If you don't like it, I'd prefer you unsubscribe and not waste your time. But anybody that does subscribe and stays subscribed, that's like, you legitimately honor me and Tyson with that. Like the fact that you would give us any second of your time, the fact that if you're watching this right now, you're thinking about checking out Lou's thing, like the fact that you'd be willing to do that, I appreciate that. And so I think that, and I know, and I don't speak for you, Lou, but I imagine you do as well. So I don't know. I just think it's cool when you have the attitude of gratitude to people that, whether they're buying your stuff, watching your stuff, whatever. And I do want to say, speaking of gratitude, I am very thankful that I do believe you have created a superhero that I, as a bald guy, if I just get a fake mustache and beard, could cosplay as.
Well, when it comes to, and I'm glad you have Beer Miss Brew right there, when it was coming to creating, and I have to give respect to Quinn Yin Dang, my artist, and she works on the storyboards for the Fabulous Freak Brothers cartoon series.
Cool.
And when we're coming up with the idea, I was like, okay, I'm a bald man myself too. This is the most hair I've had in a long time.
Yeah.
And the whole facial hair and one of the stereotypical things we're famous for is lumberjacks. And most people, I think most Canadians have never met a lumberjack in their life.
Of course not.
Hey, we're famous for lumberjacks. So I was like, okay, he's a lumberjack. He's a brewmaster, because again, we're famous for our beer and our love of beer. I found out like a weird factoid is Czechs are the biggest consumers of beer in the world per capita.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. And these are the kind of questions that are going to be in the trivia game.
Nice.
And I just want to have something. And he made the perfect lager. Yeah. He had this recipe passed down from his father, who died of mysterious circumstances, trying to make the perfect beer. And he perfects the recipe. And as he perfects the recipe, he finds out that it gives him superpowers. And
so it's sort of got a Popeye vibe, but instead of spinach and health, you've got, which the funniest part is, if I cosplayed as this character, the funniest part would be I'm a teetotaler, I don't drink, so it would be hilarious, the idea of being the brewmaster and not actually imbibing ever.
You know what, one of the coolest things, like I've never experienced it yet, but from some indie creators that I do know, they say the coolest thing is when they go to a convention and someone actually cosplays as the character. So my buddy Graham, who does a comic book called Yuki versus Panda, and to actually have someone dress up as Yuki, as the anime like deadly female assassin character, it just fills him with like this amazing.
I imagine, dude, you see your creation, your character you thought of actually standing, somebody who, first off, again, back to that gratitude, man, that somebody would be so into something you came up with
Yeah.
that they would take the time and the effort to create their embodiment. That's just awesome, man. That's so cool.
And so I would love to one day just go to a convention and see someone dressed up as Beeramus.
Yes,
And,
that'd be
give
awesome.
him his own distinctive look.
Yeah, I always feel like the joke for me as an age to have like a a goatee, Van Dyke, whatever they call it, and the joke was that Mr. Clean was like the only thing anybody ever said. So I was like, I either could go as Mr. Clean, and now I've got another option.
So I'm looking forward to having fun because I don't want it to take it too seriously. It's going to be a very corny, crazy thing.
As you could tell from the belch off.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. I love it. I love this stuff. This is great.
And actually, if you go back up, I want to talk about the Mephisto because you're a horror man.
I went by that. Yeah, I went by that.
Because a lot of people don't know about my horror comic book. So this is the game is called Do the Devil's Decree. And the main comic book is Enter the Will of the Mephistopheles. Of all my comic books, this is the one I've sold the least about.
Really?
Because that comic book is actually my artwork.
Okay.
Now,
it looks good.
I can draw. I just don't like to draw.
I got it.
And I rather leave that to the professionals.
Yeah.
And I know I'm blessed to know so many professional artists who are just talented and amazing people. And they want to work with me. So that's a plus.
Mm-hmm.
But I did the artwork for that like 20 years ago, and then I sold like 100 copies of it. But then I left alone because I'm just someone who has like self-conscious about my art because, again, there's a lot of fundamentals I don't know. Yeah. But then I met an artist, Christopher Moore, at Montreal Comic Con, and he started coloring my pages, and now they just look great.
They pop. It helps them pop. Yeah.
And the whole idea of Enter the World of Mephistopheles is that, and my book Dalflo, the serial worth killing for, Dalflo is part of this universe. And in this universe, the devil, which is the damned, and heaven, which is the divinity, they just directly use Earth as a chessboard. That's why we exist. There's no hidden thing. Demons and angels exist on Earth. And in this world, the devil just randomly chooses people to play with. And he just torments the hell out of them. And so my character, Lion Zeester, he was a serial killer. He dies horribly in an experiment. The devil loved what he did so much, he descends to send him back. Now, it is kind of Spawn-esque that you died. I'm going to send you back with this charred up body and you have powers. I actually thought of this way before Spawn came out. I actually thought of this going to my Catholic elementary school in grade 6. And yeah, again, that's a whole story of why a Catholic school kid thought of something. So I got an A+ on my assignment, but I also had.
It actually isn't. For what I'm not Catholic, but for what I have several friends who are, former or current. And like Tyson grew up Catholic. It doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, I had the guy. I got an A+ on my story, but I also got pulled over to the guidance counter to talk.
Of course you did.
That was just my imagination.
Yeah.
And, the devil is part of the mythos of Catholicism.
Yes, of course.
So I just used them as a story. Yeah. But then when it comes to the game, what I did would Do the Devil's Decree. It's a party card game in which you're given situations. And it's more along exposing what you think of your opponents and your friends in those situations. So it's more about like an honest truth or dare. But all the situations are based on horror. So an easy one to throw off the top of the head is that there's one called An Unconvenient Truth. And the card will state something like, vampires are attacking. You can get away, but you must sacrifice one opponent. Who do you sacrifice and why? And you have to explain. If you don't explain, you lose what's called a soul bar. Each player gets 5 soul bars. You lose all 5 of your souls, you're done. So it forces you to answer. Another one will be a dare. So you could go up to choose an opponent and just go cha-cha-cha-cha-cha inside their ear for 1 minute. And both you and the opponent have to stand there and do it. So the opponent can't walk away or you both lose soul bars. And
got it.
So it's just annoying each other and putting each other in situations. And
that's cool.
My credo is that by the end, if you're still friends, you all win.
Yeah, that is it. That's a good metric. Like, not only do you have the individual loss, but if your friendship is still intact, or your family, if you're playing with your family, as I probably would. So I wanted to ask you. So if I know that in the Kickstarter itself, like with the different, I don't know, the rewards. That's right. That's what they call it, right? Yeah. And when you obviously could do individual games, and then you have like a 2-pack and a 4-pack. So do people, because I think when I set mine up, it didn't ask me, are you going to do like once the campaign is over, people could choose if they pick the 2-pack, for instance, or the 1-pack, they get to pick the game they want. Okay, cool.
It's in the description. I just put 2 random pictures of
that
my
makes
games,
sense.
but
Yeah,
you get to choose what you want. So at the end of the Kickstarter campaign, there's a survey that I send out.
Yeah,
and so most people did the 4-pack. So you get one of each game. But if you just want 4 of all the same game, I can do that. You want 2 and 2, I can do that.
Yeah.
So I give it. It's up to you which games you want.
Cool.
So I know one person with the 4-pack. She already told me she's getting 1 of the horror games, and she wants 3 of the rock paper scissors.
Ah, okay.
I think, yeah, not a problem.
Cool.
It's completely up to you. I sign them if you want me to sign any of them.
Yes,
as well. And yeah, it's and then I have case quantities if someone wants to actually sell them, or
for like a store, I think it's an independent store. Yeah, that's cool.
And then I have additional what are called add-on perks. And I also want to explain this because a lot of people don't understand Kickstarter, that it's Kickstarter is an all or nothing thing. So my campaign, I think there's 31 days to go.
Yep.
So a buddy of mine who's never done Kickstarter, and he's like, okay, well, I got to wait until I get paid before I could go to your campaign. I go, no, that's not how it works. You sign up, you link a credit card to it, but they don't take a penny until the campaign is done and it's fulfilled, meaning that I meet my goal.
Yep.
So my goal is $1,500 Canadian, which I think for Americans is like $5. I don't know. Our currency is right now. But unless I hit that 1,500, if I'm at even $14.99 when the campaign ends, I get nothing. No one gets billed.
Yeah.
If I do hit the 1,500 or more, then they take the money. So it doesn't matter if you have nothing now. You know, my campaign ends on March 4th.
Yes.
So they won't take anything if it's successful on March 4th.
Yep.
Then March 5th.
Yes.
They will start.
And I want to say this is an important point to make, and it's not one you probably even thought about because it doesn't apply to you. It's about what I'm about to say, which is this. I can, not that you needed me to vouch for anything, but I can vouch, having supported Lou now in a few different Kickstarter campaigns that have come to fruition. Everything you will get, everything you signed up for. It's timely. Like, I know I actually am surprised. I've supported several Kickstarter campaigns, and there's only 1 or 2 that I have yet to get the reward, but I'm just thinking it's because they ended up being, I think, a lot bigger than the person expected. And so it's just taking longer. And so I've heard these stories though, where people are like, yeah, I supported this Kickstarter. I'm of the attitude, I support a Kickstarter, not because I'm really expecting to get anything. It's more or less because I like the person, or I like what they're doing, and I just want to help them out. To me, the reward is legitimately a perk. It's cool, but I don't really think, once I've done it, I don't really think about it until all of a sudden I get an email that says, oh, you're such and such is coming. It's like, oh, that's right, I forgot about that. That's cool. But I just want to make sure for those people that out there that are like, oh, yeah, but I don't really know Lou, and blah, I could tell you, I mean, I don't normally want to, like, I don't believe in guaranteeing anything. I mean, crap happens, right? but I could say from personal experience, I can vouch multiple times now. Lou has provided exactly what he said he would. Great quality, across the board. You do not have to worry about, like, oh, I just sent this guy $50 or whatever it ends up being, and I'm not going to get the thing I really wanted. If that's truly what's driving you to support. We were talking
about before, you appreciate when people support what you want. And I go a step further where I know this is lofty, but I want my stuff to be worth something one day. I want to know that the people, and I said my campaign. Another thing that people who do know Kickstarter, they many backers look at how many backers you have. So right now, I think I have 13 backers. There's some people like, well, this campaign should have like 50 by now, so I'm not going to support it. I don't care about the number. I really don't.
Yeah.
If my campaign reaches to 1,500 and I got only 15 people, that's great. Those 15 people mean the world to me. And not only have I, make sure you get your perks, I'll throw in extra stuff.
Yes, I can vouch for that too.
And I hustle because I want one day those perks to be worth something. Kevin Eastman, I always like bringing up Kevin Eastman. Him and his wife Courtney are the two loveliest people to talk to with all their success. And I've had quite a few conversations with them. And even Eastman, he was shocked back in the day when the Turtles took off the way they did.
Mm-hmm.
And that, his book is going for thousands upon thousands of dollars. This thing that him and Peter made in the kitchen of the house.
Mm-hmm.
And, I hope that one day, Beer Miss Brew or, Pedlian will, one day this can be worth something. And you could sell. I would love for someone to tell me in 2030, yeah, I sold Pedlian #1, the signed edition you sent to me, and I got a few $100s for it.
Yeah.
I would be elated.
Yes.
I would be happy as hell.
And the key is it's also a numbers game, right? Like you don't know what of the things you create will have that effect, right? And you can never know that. And that's the key. Like, how many times have you heard the following phrase said about a movie or a book or a comic or whatever, and it became either a cult classic or iconic or huge, but the creators of it invariably, every time will say, yeah, we had no idea. Like, I legit, like that was never, like, that's not the thing I made that I thought was going to make it huge. It never is, because you can't predict it. And I think honestly, because it comes out of, they made that thing because they loved the story, they loved the character, whatever they loved. And that comes through in the work. And I think that honestly, half the time is what causes people to respond to the work that you do. And I think that comes through in what you do. You just love these characters, you love these stories, you love the mediums in which you work, and it does come through. And because you're smart, and you're a smart entrepreneur, you're doing multiple different variations of things, and so it's back to what you said earlier. You throw something, and I won't call it mud because your stuff's better than mud, but you throw really fine spaghetti at the wall, blam, and
the finest rigatoni,
Yeah, exactly. All right. So before we wrap it up, a couple things. One, and we will link the Kickstarter, obviously, in the description below the video. And I've been showing it as well. And of course, if you go on Kickstarter, search for Zolfa Comics, or I probably, if you put your name in, I would think that would come up as well. But regardless, we'll link it in the description below. But tell them where they can find you, about your YouTube channel, anything else you want.
Okay, so on YouTube, and I'm slowly trying to get videos up and running again. I'm the homemade game guru on YouTube. I still have a lot of classic videos. Like, I'm the one who went viral for making a cardboard swimming pool that held water. Tyrion Lannister the size of a 2-story home. All types of stuff back in the heyday. On Instagram, you could just find me at Zelpha Comics and Collectibles. And Zelpha Zelpha Comics and Collectibles.
Hold on, and for the Americans, the audience, that's Z. E-L. God, sorry.
Yeah, so I know there's those little differences between our nations.
I know. It's hilarious.
But
it's hilarious.
Yeah, I get what it's all about.
Yeah,
and and then on Kickstarter, my Kickstarter campaign is very easy to find. It's just, even if you don't have the link, it's just card games and comic books. That's if you just do a search, card games and comic books, you'll see an image of all four with the four main characters around. You'll see the bottom of Cookie Monster over there. My giant googly eyes, and that's about it. And like I said, I keep on going. I never say, me, Joel. I never stop creating. This is what I'm passionate about. I've done everything from a modular board game to different comic books to cardboard action figures. Creativity is my life. It's what I do. But the one big news I want to share, and you're the first person I'm sharing this with, is that I've signed my first distributor for these cards.
Awesome.
So even before the Kickstarter campaign's done, Comics Mainstream, which is a small comic book distributor on the West Coast in Oregon and California, I'm signing an agreement with them to distribute these games, and I'm also talking to a distributor here in Canada. So I'm already getting the ball rolling.
Nice. That's awesome.
The hustle never stops. You're an entrepreneur. You know this too. It never stops, and I enjoy it. I love it. So these are my steps towards taking this to the mainstream and making sure that whoever backs this campaign, you're going to have something that's unique to you, that's different from what's going to go to the mainstream, and it's made by hand personally by me as a thank you for supporting my creative madness.
Well, I think everybody, in my opinion, that sees this, all two of them, should absolutely support anything that Lou is doing. He's a great guy, great artist, great independent entrepreneur. So for whatever reason that you need to justify in your mind to support what Lou is doing, you should absolutely do it. And Lou, not to put you completely on the spot, but as we say at the end of every video, remember at Mom and Pops, our love of
Silverhawks
never stops.